The will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. And at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed.
The United States under new management this morning. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for Thursday, January 21st. I'm Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Good morning.
A new era, Jill. If you want to know how things are going over here, I'm a 36-year-old man who was crying watching Garth Brooks sing Amazing Grace yesterday. That's what these last few years have done to me.
That was me with Gaga's national anthem. I couldn't control myself.
Good, huh?
I watched it a few different times actually. I thought she was phenomenal.
She's just the best.
All right, let's get to the day, right? Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. His full name there. Robinette, by the way, was like going viral, trending on social media. Carlo. All right, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. sworn in as the 46th president of the United States just before noon Eastern on the west front of the Capitol. It was a sunny, chilly, and somewhat surreal day in Washington, D.C. The oldest president in U.S. history, who was once one of the youngest senators ever elected, declared in his inaugural address, quote, "Democracy has prevailed." And he called on all Americans to end this civil war, red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. On Fox News, anchor Chris Wallace called it the best inaugural address I've ever heard. And minutes before, Kamala Harris took the oath of office to become the first woman, first Black, and first Asian American to hold the second highest office in the country. She is now the highest ranking female in the history of the federal government. She then swore in two new senators from Georgia, as well as her replacement in California, giving Democrats full control of Congress for the first time in a decade. Carlo, your thoughts on the day?
It's funny. It really was sort of surreal in its normalcy, I thought. Having just covered so many of these and been to a couple of them, it was, first of all, it was really weird to just see Washington so empty because you're so used to seeing all those people on the mall waving flags and on the parade route. But I would say overall, the first word that comes to mind is reassuring. That's sort of how I felt yesterday watching everything. There's this sense of professionalism and empathy coming back to Washington. Biden's staff has always said that empathy is his superpower. Just having been forged from so much loss and trauma in his life. And I think that that's really going to come in handy. I mean, we're in a bad spot right now, in case no one's noticed. And I think that it just feels good that I think that we can all take a sigh of relief that there appears to be at least some competence and at least not outwardly malevolent people in charge for this moment, for this specific moment. On Kamala Harris, truly historic. My future daughter won't know a world in which a woman or a Black man can't get elected to the highest offices in the land. That's significant, right? That's really meaningful. And we can't sort of give that short sight, I guess you'd say. On Biden himself, on his inaugural, I thought the speech was on the nose. The mere fact that a president has to say democracy has prevailed in an inaugural address was very striking to me. But I think the uncivil war line that you mentioned, that's the thing that that's the line that people will remember from that speech coming 4 years to the day after former President Trump's infamous American carnage line. I mean, look, Joe Biden, the guy first ran for president in 1988. I mean, he has aspired to this his whole life. Regardless of how you feel about him, just imagine how gratifying that must feel to be up there taking the oath of office after wanting it and working towards it for so long. I mean, right? I mean, other people were saying this, but like it really tells you just don't give up on those dreams, right?
Not only that, Carlo, but he was basically like left for dead in the primary.
Yeah.
It was James Clyburn. His endorsement in South Carolina that kind of brought Joe Biden back to life. Joe Biden lost Iowa, lost New Hampshire. No one thought he was going to get it.
I sure didn't. I remember actually having a meeting with our old boss, Jim, at Cheddar, and we were discussing when we thought Biden was going to pull out of the primary. I think we thought it was going to happen after New Hampshire, and we were planning for our coverage. Joke was on us, huh?
I thought his speech was incredible. I was actually listening to it because I was driving home from work at the time. I just wanted to read one line that really struck me. He said, "Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in. A once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country. It's taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost, hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. The cry for survival comes from the planet itself, a cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy, unity, unity." And that struck me, right? It seems like he is the right president or the right person for this particular time.
Yeah.
I can't remember, being in a worse place, maybe after 9/11. But as President Biden points out, we're dealing with just so many things at once.
I'm glad you mentioned that line, actually, Jill. Excuse me, because he said the words white supremacy there. I don't think I've ever heard that in an inaugural
And domestic
address before.
terrorism.
Yeah. So that was remarkable. He's sort of, he's putting a point on it, right? By the way, just before we move on a little bit, I know that we were just talking about Lady Gaga, but when she was doing the national anthem, and she goes, "Our flag was still there," and then pointed to the flag that was flying at the Capitol, which is the same flag that was flying 2 weeks earlier when the building was sacked. Oh God.
And
like a little
you
baby
can't.
over here.
And look, Donald Trump not there. It was such a difference in terms of tone from the speech that President Trump gave 4 years ago. If you remember, George W. Bush was overheard saying that was some weird shit. I don't know if I could say that word.
We'll beep it.
But anyway, I mean, I don't know. I thought his speech struck the right tone. And I found it, I think reassuring was right. I just found the image of the Obamas, the Bushes, the Clintons, whatever you think of them politically, they are these kind of nostalgic legacy. They're as close as we get to royalty in this country, and just seeing them all together, all wearing masks, it just was kind of reassuring and refreshing. President Biden signed 17 executive orders and actions on his first day in office as he moved immediately to undo major aspects of President Trump's legacy. Biden halted funding for the border wall, reversed the travel ban on Muslim countries, rejoined the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Accord, installed a pandemic response coordinator, and canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, among other moves. The new administration expected to announce more details of its pandemic response plan today, including an invocation of the Defense Production Act to speed up testing and vaccine supplies.
That's been something I was hoping that they would do, and something I never understood why President Trump never did. I think that Biden really should go big early, especially when it comes to COVID and the economy. Democrats never really govern like they have mandates, and Republicans always do. So I think that if I were Biden, I would be like, look, I'm going to set the table. I'm going to cook the food. I'm going to tell Republicans they're welcome at dinner if they want to come. But if they don't want to come, if they want to obstruct, that's obviously their right too. But that said, I mean, he has to govern in a bipartisan way, just given the margins in the Senate, right? He cannot risk alienating the center. But I don't think that's really a risk with him because he's like the textbook definition of a centrist politician himself.
He is. I mean, look, the Senate, it's going to be very interesting and complicated what happens now with impeachment, because Joe Biden just came out basically saying, and I don't have the exact line in front of me, but saying to people, for everyone who didn't vote for me, all I ask is hear me out. give me a chance. If you don't agree with me, okay, right? That's it. That's
Right.
democracy. He said unity 20-something times. Now an impeachment trial. What does that do? Just whatever you think of what President Trump and his role was in the mob and insurrection
Right.
2 weeks ago, just the idea of moving everything forward. What an impeachment
It'll be
trial
interesting,
does.
yeah.
It's going to be a kind of a tough line for them to walk, to both balance moving the nation forward, passing important legislation, getting his cabinet picks through, trying to present this maybe just facade of bipartisanship, and then having an impeachment trial. Chris Christie, who was a Trump aide for a long time, obviously, ally for a long time, Republican, he was on ABC last night, and he was just kind of like, look, the message was great that Biden came out and with this idea of unity, but then in the first couple of hours, he basically just undid everything that President Trump did. Now we're going to have an impeachment trial. So again, it's like the words are great, but it's how you put it all together and how you govern that really matter. Okay, getting the pandemic under control, clearly and rightly, the president's first and most important task. 2 small new studies suggest that the new coronavirus variants that are circulating in Brazil, the UK, South Africa, and here in the US could pose problems for the vaccines. According to studies which have not yet been peer-reviewed, vaccines may not fully immunize people to the new variants, meaning that they could become slightly or asymptomatically ill and continue to pass the virus to others who are not immunized. Oh, can we get some good news with this virus? I'm like so done wearing 3 masks and wiping down everything I touch and being frightened of people.
By the way, I thought of you when I saw the guy yesterday at this inauguration whose sole job it was to wipe down the podium between the speakers. I don't know why.
Why did that make you think of me?
I don't know. I don't know why, but I was just like, I feel like Joe would appreciate that. Yeah, look, these studies are not good. The problem is the virus is now spreading just so fast and unchecked basically everywhere that it's being given the opportunity to reinvent itself with these new mutations that can evade at least some measures of protection. That's what they think, at least. That was always going to happen because viruses mutate, as we know, but scientists are surprised at how fast it's happening, which is just by virtue of the unchecked spread, right? All of this new opportunity for it to do its thing. It typically takes years for viruses to develop these escape mutations, and they're starting to see them now after only, a year. So that's worrisome. It's not the sky is falling. First of all, we don't know, there's a lot of studies. We don't know the full aspects of these yet. It may end up being that the vaccine just needs to keep getting tweaked like the flu shot, year after year. We just don't know yet. But the bottom line is still the same. We have got to get shots in arms. That's the goal. That's Biden's goal. He has said that he wanted 100 million shots in 100 days. That's actually a pretty low bar at this point. I mean, we're doing more than 100,000 a day now.
Amazon, I don't know if you saw this. Amazon came out yesterday basically offering help for vaccination. I don't know in what capacity, but they're offering to help the Biden administration in terms of the vaccination process. And I'm thinking about those memes that it was sort of funny. It was like if you want everyone vaccinated, teach Amazon Prime drivers how to do vaccinations, and they'll figure out how to get it in people's arms within 24 hours. And it's like, it's funny, but it's perhaps true, right? If you want the most competent people, go to the tech industry at this point. Right. The U.S. and look, I joke, but it's not a laughing matter. It's a race against time, And Biden, in terms of this mask challenge, he's mandating masks on federal property. It's like mask challenge. The mask challenge could be like, how many masks can you physically put on your face, not just wearing one.
Support. Yeah, right.
I've managed, I think, 3. I wore 3 when I got my hair cut. Colored like months ago, and as you could tell, I've been too scared to go back to do it again. The U.S., by the way, reporting 4,409 deaths yesterday. Just incredible. Meanwhile, on Wall Street, the Dow, the S&P, the NASDAQ all hit new highs as President Biden took the oath of office, continuing this months-long run in the face of just really bad economic data. The market under President Trump had annualized returns just shy of those under President Obama. Some investors had worried that Democratic control of Washington would put the brakes on the bull market. That has not happened, at least not yet.
Stocks dropped 13% between election day and inauguration day. That's the best post-election return in modern history. Obviously, presidents, they like to take responsibility when the market's good and shirk it when it's bad. But the market works in its own mysterious ways. But clearly, this idea that stocks were going to crash the minute that Joe Biden took the oath of office, that's not happening.
And they didn't even crash when John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock won in Georgia, which was pretty fascinating. Okay, I do want to mention the QAnon conspiracy. The crux of the QAnon liturgy has always been that President Trump would stay in power for a second term, at which point he would arrest Democrats for running a global pedophilia ring in a great awakening. I can't believe I just read that line.
I know.
But yes, that is actually the basis of this organization or this philosophy. Now, so when that did not happen and President Biden took office without incident, many Q adherents took to online forums and messaging apps to express anger and disbelief. Some appear to have written off the conspiracy. Others have just revised the terms. They now believe that Biden was installed by Trump and it's all part of the plan. Reading some of the posts, Carlo, is incredible.
Regardless, this is like nonsense, but extremism, it's important because extremism experts say that they're really worried about something specific, which is that white supremacists and other sort of like more well-organized fringe groups are now going to target these disaffected QAnon followers for recruitment online. In fact, that's already happening, according to NBC News. And I say this with all seriousness. Like, if there's somebody in your life who has been sucked into this madness, this is a very good day to go check on them and sort of like take their mental health temperature. It's easy to make fun of this stuff because it is so ridiculous. But generally speaking, there are a lot of people and a lot of good people who have been brainwashed in this country, and they need our help. They need our help to sort of come back to reality. If you're going to be upset at anyone when it comes to QAnon, be upset at Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg for allowing this kind of crap to propagate on their platforms and make money off of it, because that's the outrage here. It's not that there's these just people who are grasping at something to believe in, and this is what they found. It's just the whole thing is very sad more than anything, I think.
I mean, look, Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma City bombings in the 90s.
Yeah.
This country, a lot of security experts will tell you that that's the fear, right? And that we're kind of lucky that hasn't happened again. But that was domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
And
well, thank God there wasn't the internet back
away.
then. Really.
Exactly. Right. And right, it doesn't go away with a new president.
Exactly.
So I hope, and Joe Biden kind of talked about that a bit, just about, this idea of we're in this time where there's manufactured facts for whether it's profit or power. I don't know. It's so cliche to say we're a country divided, because we are, but it's more than that, as we've talked about. It's like not dealing with the facts are facts, as we've always discussed. Anyway, back to the inauguration. Can we talk about this poet, Amanda Gorman, the youngest poet to ever read at an inauguration, easily, I think, the breakout star of Wednesday's ceremony? She said she was struggling to finish the poem that she was writing for the inaugural on January 6th when the riots at the Capitol broke out, and then used that event as inspiration for her final verses, which she delivered to near universal acclaim, and we're going to play a clip now.
If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it.
She was incredible, huh? She was really incredible, Jill. I'm not like a big poetry guy, I wouldn't say, but I do appreciate a good poem, and that was a phenomenal poem. So kudos to her. I also really liked seeing Eugene Goodman, the Capitol Police officer. We talked about him last week, I think. He was the cop who led that mob away from the Senate, a guy who may have literally saved Mike Pence's life. in all seriousness. He was tapped to escort Kamala Harris to her seat. That was really nice to see. I hope that they make him Senate Sergeant at Arms, and I think that there's a good possibility that may happen.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty powerful seeing him. And I was like happy for him. You know, I felt this pride for him, and just thinking about like he should write a book. I feel like everyone and their mother writes books and memoirs these days. He is somebody that I'd actually want to hear from. As for the fashion, a presidential inauguration, kind of like the prom for people in government, that and the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which didn't happen this year. Vice President Harris wore a coat by Christopher John Rogers and pearls by Wilfredo Rosado, Dr. Jill Biden, and I'm going to just butcher these pronunciations because I do not know fashion. But Jill Biden wore Macarian, is that how you say it?
Macarian, I think.
Macarian. Michelle Obama, to me, was just, I thought, stunning. I mean, like, she almost like took my breath away when I saw her coming in that kind of maroon outfit. She wore Sergio Hudson, all American designers. Michelle Obama, I think, was my favorite look. The Doug Emhoff's daughter, Kamala Harris's daughter, Ella Emhoff, she kind of was the breakout star in terms of the fashion world. She's a Brooklynite like you. She lives in Bushwick, Carlo.
The first daughter of Bushwick, baby.
Yeah, and she just kind of broke the internet yesterday with her look.
Yeah. Michelle Obama, man, talk about someone who's got the drip, right? Like,
God.
She does not miss. Look, the best fit was clearly Bernie Sanders.
Oh my, that was amazing. Amazing.
Bernie Sanders looked like he was checking out the scene on his way to the post office, right? He had like all the papers in his arm. I mean, look, say what you will about Bernie Sanders. There is nobody in the American government who is more what you see is what you get. The guy there is just no artifice to the guy at all. And I always respect that about him. And as someone said in my favorite tweet of the day, Bernie dressed like the inauguration is on his to-do list today, but ain't his whole day.
It's so true. I liked somebody did in quotes with his picture, I am once again asking for a space heater, because that was kind of like the look that he had.
His one good coat, right? He had his one good coat on.
Janet Yellen also kind of had that same look of just like, I'm freezing, please get me out of here.
Becky sent that to me, and she was just like, "This is me at any like outdoor dining event, just like wrapped up, totally bundled."
Because it's like either you went for the fashion, or you were just like all for the comfort. And I will say, I'm not always the biggest fan of social media, but Twitter came out swinging yesterday. I mean, I was laughing out loud at some tweets.
The Bernie memes had me actually in hysterics, I have to say. I linked to some of those newsletter today if you didn't get if you had like an actual job and didn't have a chance to look at Twitter all day yesterday.
Oh my gosh. All right, well, anyway, that is, we're going to leave it there. That's what you need to know for Thursday, January 21st.
Guys.